What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team Career Mode, and we're here for round number 18 of Season 6 of our Jaguar Racing career, and it is time for the USA Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. And I'm looking forward to this one. This wasn't on the calendar last year, so it's been a little while since I've done it, and it is a kind of strange track for me in the sense that it's always a track I go pretty well at. We've had podiums here, a few fourth places, that kind of thing, but we've never won this race. And winning this race would be pretty amazing, because that would mean that we would be on a run of 4 victories in a row, as you can see here. We won in Singapore, Japan, and Qatar. Took our 8th victory of the season in Qatar, which was not something I was expecting at all, especially given the form I've shown on that track in seasons gone by. But yeah, if we can bag this win today, it would make it 4 victories in a row. And I think the first time I'd ever got 4 victories in a row in one of these career modes. As for the driver standings, we're basically untouchable now. I'd say 106 points ahead of Oscar Piastri with only 5 races left to go. Yes, there's 2 sprints, which means that however many 5 times 26 is 130, you got to add 16 to that. 146 points still up for grabs, meaning that I can't win the championship on this occasion, but next time out in Mexico I have a very good chance to win the championship. So that's got to be the aim now. Get the championship wrapped up by Mexico. Let's not have to worry about the tracks that are coming afterwards, which include Portugal, Brazil, Vegas, Abu Dhabi. Hold on a minute, that's 5 tracks. One of them must be missing then, but I don't know which one it is. That's a little embarrassing that I'm actually not sure which one it is. I'm trying to think. This is round number 18. Oh wait, no, so there's 5 tracks remaining. Okay, yeah. I was confused. In that case, yeah, we definitely can't wrap up the championship this race. But next race, again, it still will be possible, but it'll be a little bit harder than I thought it was. I was properly doing the calculations in my head. I was like, hold on a second, how does this work? But yeah, so we'd have to. I'm trying to think how many points we'd have to be ahead in this race. 166, I think, is the answer. Or, no, 172. Anyway, let's stop doing maths and let's start focusing on the race. Texas, like I said, it is a track where I typically, like I said, go pretty well around, but never amazingly well around. I've never won here. I think that's got to be the target here today. See if we can really sort of mark out our championship winning credentials, go on a really dominant run, a Verstappen-esque run, or a Hamilton-esque or Schumacher-esque run. These drivers, all people who just completely dominated the respective seasons in which they drove. Vettel as well, and yeah, practice went pretty well. We had pretty good pace on these medium compound tyres. Yes, we were a little off of Charles Leclerc, but as always I did the run quite early on into the practice session. And hopefully this is a sign of good things to come, because I was pretty happy with the performance there. Obviously a few people doing runs on the softs as well. We didn't do any on this occasion, and now it is time to make our way into qualifying. Now this is going to be pretty important, because this is not an impossible track to overtake at, but it certainly is a track which gives way to DRS trains quite easily. And if we don't get a good qualifying, we could potentially find ourselves ending up in a bit of a DRS train, and yeah, that will probably harm our chances quite significantly of getting the victory here. So we kick things off with a 131.6 on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. Not a bad time, but I do think we'll need a bit of improvement on that if we are to challenge for the top spots here today. This would have been good enough to get us through to Q2. I wasn't really surprised about that, because it was a pretty decent lap. However, we were only able to improve by less than 2/10 on our second flying lap and another fresh set of soft compound tyres. We actually lost time in the first 2 sectors, made it all up in the final sector, which was a bit surprising given that the final sector was the one that I purpled on my first lap. But anyway, 1/10 off of Dennis Hauger, not too bad. Charles Leclerc all the way down in 13th, a little bit disappointing from him. And then eliminated here, we've got Ocon, Gasly, Doohan, Stroll, Joe, and De Vries. Ocon just not managing to find the form that you would want from him in that Red Bull. Realistically, there's no excuse in a Red Bull for being knocked out in Q1 when his teammate at one point this season was looking like he might be a championship contender, kind of fallen by the wayside to some other drivers now. I think he's all the way down in like 4th or 5th at this point. So yeah, not going amazingly well for George Russell, but we make our way through into Q2 anyway, and now the aim is to get through to Q3 in the best possible position that we can find. On a used set of tyres, we did a 132.5. It was good enough for P6 initially, but I will imagine that we'll have to improve on that if we want any chance of making it through to Q3. And lo and behold, here we were all the way down in P14 come the end of the lap. Charles Leclerc will be out in Q2, very disappointingly, on a weekend that if he wanted to get back in the championship fight, he realistically needed to get through to Q3. He will not be taking part in the final part of qualifying. He will be no higher than 12th, likely 13th once I've crossed the line, because you can see that we are quite far up on our time now. We did a 132.5, I believe it was, and we're improving by almost a second here. So we'll see what our final time will be. Cross the line to 131.4, and that is good enough to put us in P4 and send us through to Q3 with no real issues. So now the aim is just to gun for pole position if we can. Dennis Hauger going fastest again there. The Norwegian driver having a very, very strong weekend so far here in the USA. Another driver that's particularly impressive getting through there is Théo Pourchaire. In the Haas, not had the strongest of seasons, but pretty good. Vesti out qualifying Leclerc as well. He joins Russell, Sargent, Fittipaldi and Tsunoda in the drop zone as well. Russell, again, pretty disappointing for him. Only 0.08 of a second off of making it through, but ultimately he didn't, and that has allowed Oscar Piastri, the man who is looking more and more like he's going to grab P2 in the Drivers' Championship, allowed him to get through into Q3 and challenge for pole position as well. It had to be one lap magic here in Q3 because the rain started to come down. The problem with that is that I went out a little bit later than everyone else, and so of course I got a little bit of a wetter track than everyone else. And not only that, but I also went out on a used set of soft compound tyres because I didn't realise the rain was coming. And so as we round the final corner, I would wager to say it's very unlikely this is going to be pole position for us. And it's going to be a 134.4, which puts us P7, and surely that will just be P7 now. I don't see a world in which someone could beat this time realistically, unless they do a really good time. And somebody did apparently, because I'm all the way down in P8 now, and yeah, that is not what we wanted at all. Albon bags pole position, followed by Hauger and Piastri in the top 3. So Hauger couldn't convert that pole position in the end. And then it's Perez, Magnussen, Norris, Lawson, myself, Pourchaire and Verstappen. Pretty poor qualifying in the end for us, 0.6 off of pole position, and we're going to have to fight our way through from P8 as we get into the sprint race for the USA Grand Prix.
So it is all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. What a great lap from Alexander Albon yesterday. He'll start from pole position, and Dennis Hauger completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Oscar Piastri, Perez, Magnussen, Norris, Liam Lawson, Robinson, Théo Pourchaire, Verstappen, Russell, Vesti, Leclerc, Sargent, Fittipaldi, Tsunoda, Ocon, Gasly, Doohan, Stroll, Joe, and Nick de Vries rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out.
And nothing for Alex Jakes to say on the introduction to this sprint. Here's Nick de Vries at the back of the grid. Actually, not having a completely terrible season, Nick de Vries. He scored points in Imola, I believe, and I believe that will probably make him not last in the championship, especially because I can't remember Stroll scoring points all season. It's been a very weird season in terms of who's found form where, what kind of performance all of the cars have had. Pretty much, I'd say the AlphaTauris are about the only team that I would say are out of the hunt for points on each weekend. You know, Vesti obviously not doing amazingly in the Alpine since he came in Belgium to replace Ocon, who got promoted to Red Bull when Perez departed for Ferrari. But even he has managed to bag a few points here. And in a 23-driver championship, because Daruvala obviously took part in the first half of the season as well, it really is seeming like anyone could score points on a particular weekend, as long as you know, get the strategy right, maybe you show a bit more pace in qualifying. It really is anyone's game, and that's evidenced by the fact that, you know, we're in a top 10 where Hauger is in P2, Lawson is there in P7, Pourchaire's just behind us in P9, and Russell gets knocked out in Q2. But here we go, as the lights come on and the lights go out, and we've had a good getaway compared to Lando Norris, and compared to Perez, Magnussen. All of these guys seem to have gone quite slowly off the line. Again, Lawson, you saw there, got a little bit screwed. Meanwhile, we wall ride Alex Albon up the inside. That was not a clean move by any stretch of the imagination, but somehow we've gotten away with it. We didn't even get a warning for it, and we have made up 6 positions off the start there to make our way up into P2. I do feel bad about that, because I really don't know how I got away with that without any kind of illegal overtake or anything. Virtual safety car deployed here on lap number 2 now, as somebody's out. It is Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda, 2 cars out of the race. Let's see what happened with these guys. Tsunoda going slowly, so he's obviously had some kind of mechanical failure, and then there goes Ocon straight into the side of him. I think that's Gasly going into the back of Tsunoda as well, his former teammate, of course. Yeah, that is that for both Tsunoda and Ocon's race. I think Gasly's managed to keep going with that front wing damage, and we'll have a chance to repair it because there is now a red flag, perhaps unsurprisingly. 2 DNFs usually brings out a red flag, and we'll see what the recommended strategy is going to be today as we go through the red flag phase. They're actually saying I should go on to another set of medium compound tyres, but you know, you would think with only, it will be 6 laps left to go realistically, there is a very realistic possibility that I think that the softs will go to the end without any real issues. They say that they will be fractionally slower, but I think the increased pace initially will make them viable. So on these soft compound tyres, let's see what we can do once again as the lights come on and the lights go out. And we've had a good getaway compared to Dennis Hauger there, and we are up into the lead of the sprint here in Texas. And Piastri and Lawson both have also jumped the Norwegian driver, so it's been a very disappointing restart for Dennis Hauger, who has looked really good here so far this weekend, and hopefully he'll be able to make his way back past the next couple of drivers ahead of him, make his way back into at least P2, where he can finish comfortably behind me, is what I hope for. Now we go on to lap number 5, looking at Charles Leclerc, my teammate, and he's had a spin through the first corner. No idea how he managed to do that, because he was taking it, you know, very, very well, and then all of a sudden the car just stepped out from underneath him. So that's backed up the field a little bit, and we will see what repercussions that has, whether it brings out any safety cars or anything. And in fact, there is a red flag. It's not just a safety car, it is another red flag. 2 red flags here in the sprint in the first 5 laps. This is unprecedented. Everyone seems to have forgotten how to drive. So we will see what strategy they're suggesting now. Going on to a set of medium compound tyres is what they're suggesting, even though there's only a few laps left. And to be fair, I kind of see it from their perspective, because if we were changing onto a set of softs, we'd be going onto a set of used soft compound tyres from qualifying. So maybe the mediums are the play here, and that's what I'm going to end up going for. We'll see whether the strategy works out for us as the lights come on once again. And the lights go out for the 3rd time here in just 7 laps of the Circuit of the Americas. And we have had a good getaway compared to all of the cars behind. Albon getting up into P2 now, but Hauger seems to be getting ahead of him even. Joe retiring from the race. What is going on here in this sprint race? Hauger's made his way back up into P2. Very happy for him. And our DRS isn't working either, so we better hope we stay ahead of him now. As let's see what happened with Zhou Guanyu, shall we? So the lights came on and went out, and let's see, everyone getting away cleanly, and you can see Joe pulling to the inside and then immediately pulling to the outside of the track, pulling over and retiring from the race. So obviously a mechanical failure. So the 2 mechanical failures in this race were both of the Alfa Romeos. Really poor reliability for those guys who, you know, they've not had the best of seasons, Tsunoda included. Yes, he's had a few appearances in Q3 and a few points finishes and whatnot. But generally, I was expecting that Tsunoda would be a bit stronger at this stage of the series, but it's not really materialised for him. In any case, for the rest of the sprint, we didn't really see any action. No challenges. Yes, Hauger got quite close to me, but he never looked like he was going to overtake me. Just to get a good run through the final corner, everything will be fine, and we'll cross the line to take P1.
So let's see how the drivers' standings have changed. Robinson increases their championship lead. With the sprint wrapped up, we now have our grid lineup for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race. Here we are then in one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, the fabulous Austin in the great state of Texas. The circuit itself, 14 miles southeast of the city centre, has been home to the US Grand Prix since 2012, the latest in a long list of iconic tracks to have that honour. We're racing today then in Travis County, Texas, where 20 corners and speeds of up to 200 miles per hour await us on this magnificent racetrack. It's 60% full throttle with plenty of good opportunities to pass, especially through the 2 DRS zones into turn 1 and the long back straight into turn 12. What a race we have in store today. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Robinson lines up on pole position, and Dennis Hauger completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Albon, Oscar Piastri, Liam Lawson, Teo Pourchaire, Russell, Magnussen, Perez, Leclerc, Norris, Doohan, Vesti, Sargent, Stroll, De Vries, Gasly, Fittipaldi, Ocon, Verstappen, Joe, and Yuki Tsunoda. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. With me today, of course, is Natalie Pinkham. Why don't we kick off by discussing Max Verstappen? And we welcome Anthony Davidson to the commentary box once again. And this driver had a great win last time out. Can they carry that momentum into this one?
Well, there are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out will have boosted their confidence coming into this race.
I have to say, if I have one hope for something they fix for F1 24, it's the double welcoming Anthony Davidson line that seems to go on every single introduction to these races that we do. That commentary line always doubles up. I don't know if it's an Alex Jakes exclusive thing. If you have your commentary set to be David Croft, maybe it's different. But yeah, that's like one thing I would really like for them to fix. There's a few sort of quality of life things generally that I hope get polished up, but obviously they're not a massive priority. The overhauled driver career mode is the thing I'm really looking the most forward to, and hopefully that delivers on the sort of promise that we've been given from Codemasters and EA so far. But anyway, enough talk about the future. It's time to talk about the present. We have a race to win. We're starting from P1 alongside our old teammate Dennis Hauger, and we are going to see what we can do now as the lights come on and the lights go out, and it's been a good start for us as we make our way through into P1 with no real confusion here. Hauger, meanwhile, he's had a disappointing start there down behind Piastri and Lawson, although he has managed to make his way back up into P2 by the looks of things. Albon had a shocking start there. Pourchaire seems to have had a pretty good one, up to P5 in that Haas. So we'll see if he can bag some points here today in the Haas, and deliver on what is not a particularly easy car to score points in. They're one of the weaker teams on the grid this season, the Haas, even though at one point they actually looked like they were on for a race win with Jack Doohan in Imola. That didn't materialise, and instead they're currently sat, I believe, 8th or 9th in the Constructors' Championship in what has not been a brilliant season for those guys by any stretch of the imagination. For the race so far, it has been pretty good for us. We are currently in P1 still, and Dennis Hauger not really putting too much pressure on us so far. He probably will be a little bit faster in the straights, if I had to imagine. The setups that I've been running recently, ever since this sort of setup issue was drawn to my attention, where apparently all my setups were just terrible, I've gone for much higher downforce on basically all of them. And it seems to be working quite nicely for me through the corners, although it is making me quite slow and quite susceptible to the cars behind me in the straights now. So, yeah, at least that's something for me, because before it used to be I was slow in the straights and slow in the corners. Now I'm only slow in the straights. We fixed that. That may have something to do with the engine as well, potentially. It's kind of hard to say, because obviously we are running a different engine to the majority of our main competitors. Red Bull generally are kind of nowhere this season, so maybe that is a thing that, you know, in the more sort of chassis-driven tracks, maybe Red Bull do quite well, but then in tracks that require a bit more engine power, like COTA, for example, maybe that's where Red Bull don't do so well. Meanwhile, Hauger now going for the lead of the race. You know, he was leading in the sprint at one point. We stole it away from him, and now he has taken it back off of us in lap 4 of this 28-lap race around the circuit of the Americas. And we're going to have to try and stay with our former teammate as best we can. However, that will be made infinitely more difficult if we come under pressure from this man behind us, Oscar Piastri. Still somehow, I'm saying he's yet to win a race this season. There has been countless times where he has been in the conversation for a victory, in the conversation for, you know, a podium finish. So many races this season. There's a reason that he's P2 in the Drivers' Championship, despite the fact he's not won a race. It's because of the absolutely remarkable consistency that the Australian driver has shown. And if he'd been winning some of these races, who knows? Maybe, just maybe, he could actually be challenging me for a Drivers' Championship this season. But as things stand, Oscar Piastri, he just can't seem to take that extra step up from P2 or P3 into P1. And yeah, things really just not going the way that I think he would want them to. However, we do come under pressure from him on lap 6 now as well, and we do just about manage to keep him behind once again. But he's piling more and more pressure on us, and that's putting us further and further out of touch with Dennis Hauger. Make our way onto lap 8 now, and the gap is 2.5 seconds ahead. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri looking for a move in the same place that Dennis Hauger pulled it off, and he's really far ahead this time, but he goes too deep into the corner, and we pull off the switchback on him, and that is, you know, remnants of what I was doing all race in Qatar to my competitors. Every single time into turn 1, they would overtake me, go deep, and I would switch it back on them into turn 2. And you know, that was a really fun thing to do, and it seems to be happening here again in Austin, Texas. However, Oscar Piastri, once again with that DRS, he goes to the inside. He's going to try and go for the move on me, but we are going to try and hang it around the outside of the Australian driver if we can, wheel to wheel into the next corner. And somehow Oscar Piastri still hasn't managed to make this move. Even I'm confused as to how I've managed to defend this for as long as I have. I can't imagine how Piastri must be feeling looking at my rear wing all race. But he's a lot closer now on lap 9. And let's see what he's going to do. He's actually going to try and go to the outside here. We make enough space because I didn't want to have an accident, and Oscar Piastri finally has made his way through into P2 in this race. We weren't close enough to think about diving him up the next corner, so I think he's going to hold on to this position for the time being. Make our way now onto lap number 11, and we've got Liam Lawson directly behind us in that DRS range. Piastri's managed to break away. This is what I mean by I'm not particularly fast in the straights, and I'm not particularly fast in the corners now either, because the tyres are really starting to go off. So Liam Lawson piling a bit of pressure on me at the end of the DRS zone. However, not quite close enough to commit to making the move, and we're going to hold on to the podium places for the time being. Dennis Hauger, meanwhile, with a 3-second lead out in front. We'll see if he can hold on to this for the remainder of the race. I still want to get back at him and try and win if I possibly can, but it's really not going to be easy now because he's so far out in front. We're going to have to hope that our pace on the hard compound tyres that we're switching onto is going to be a little bit better. That was the thing about this race, is that because I used both of the medium compound tyres I had available in the sprint, it meant that the strategy they put me on was a soft hard, and I couldn't really argue with that because the medium hard didn't seem like it would work. Having 2 sets of, you know, 4-lap-old mediums or whatever, 5-lap-old mediums, it wasn't really going to work. So we come into the pit lane and we're going to be boxing for these hard compound tyres. We're going to get a turn in, but somehow we still end up getting held in the pits to wait for Liam Lawson, despite the fact we came in earlier than him. I do not understand how we've been made to do that, and Liam Lawson makes his way up into what will be net P3. We're going to try and dive it around the outside of him on the exit of the pits, but that was a very audacious idea, and it's probably only ended up costing us time, quite frankly. So yeah, the New Zealander making his way onto the podium, and now on lap 14 we're going to try and deny him that, as a few more cars have pitted. We're up in P9. Lance Stroll, one of those cars that's yet to pit, he's been holding up Liam Lawson a treat for me right now, as I believe Nick De Vries is also yet to pit, and he is close to holding up Hauger and Piastri. Hopefully he can hold them up a little bit. We're going to dive it on Liam Lawson, confident in the tyre performance, and we are back up into net P3, but not potentially if we get held up too much by Lance Stroll here. So I'm going to try and get past him as quickly as I possibly can and see if he can hold up Liam Lawson a bit for me. So we dive up the inside of Lance Stroll. A bit of an opportunistic move there, but nonetheless a good one, and we make our way into what is now P5, net P3, and the last couple of cars of Leclerc and Magnussen are coming into the pit lane, and that will promote us back up into P3. Let's have a look. What's the gap to Piastri and Hauger? 2.8 seconds to Hauger, actually. Piastri obviously getting ahead of him, and this could be Piastri's best opportunity to win a race yet. Hauger, he's a good driver, but he is not the absolute fastest on the grid by any stretch of the imagination, and I reckon on his day Piastri definitely has the potential to be faster. Piastri's got the same engine as Dennis Hauger as well. It really just comes down to who has the better driving skill and who has the better, car beneath them as well in terms of the chassis and aero performance. Aero, of course, a big thing around this circuit, and Aston Martin typically have been pretty good in that department. I believe they actually have the fastest car on the grid, or maybe the second fastest car on the grid. Not sure, but either way, we are closing these guys down a little bit, as I'm showing good performance here as well. But is it good enough to catch them? Who knows? Either way, it seems like Piastri has not really managed to break away from Dennis Hauger, and you can see in the distance there, they're battling away wheel to wheel as Hauger is trying to regain the lead of the USA Grand Prix, and I think he's done it actually. He's made his way back into P1. Surely Piastri is not going to let this one slip away from him again. Someone who is going to let the race get away from him though is Lance Stroll, who will be retiring from the race here on lap 22. He was actually having a pretty good race, if I'm not mistaken. He was something like 14th or 15th. It doesn't sound like a lot, but given that he typically finishes around 20th, it actually wasn't a terrible result he was on for. Unfortunately, not working out for him. And speaking of not working out for people, Oscar Piastri, who at one point looked like he was going to win this race, now might not even finish on the podium, as we are going to go for a move into P2 on Oscar Piastri, and now he's down into P3. So if George Russell catches up to him and makes the overtake, then it will be another failed opportunity to win here for Oscar Piastri. And well, I just can't see him doing it now. With only 5 laps left to go, where would he even do it if not here? This was the best opportunity he possibly had. The bottle factory, they've got those workers going overtime for Oscar Piastri right now, because he just can't seem to get it over the line in first, no matter how hard he tries, no matter how long he leads a race for, no matter how dominant he looks. It just doesn't seem to be working out for him. We at one point looked like we might have caught Dennis Hauger, but yeah, it just didn't seem to happen for us. The pace kind of fell away from us a little bit in the last couple of laps, and the gap increased a bit. Dennis Hauger maybe was being a bit conservative at first, not pushing too hard, but when he saw that I was closing him in, maybe he pushed a bit harder. So it's going to be a 3rd victory this season for the Norwegian driver, and we are going to cross the line to take P3 and or P2 rather, and another podium. Not a win. We couldn't get our 4th race win in a row. We couldn't get our 1st win in Texas, but we still bag a crucial 18 points in our championship fight. Dennis Hauger gets driver of the day, and a solid performance from us both.
A victory for Aston Martin. The team will certainly be celebrating tonight.
Natalie, fill us in. What was it that helped the team achieve their success today?
I want to know if that was as easy as it looked. An absolute masterclass today.
I can see them on their way out to the podium now. Aston Martin really are making waves in this sport. And what a special race this was to see them earn the top spot.
So Dennis Hauger, like I said, takes his 3rd victory of the season. It's P2 for us, and Oscar Piastri has to settle for P3. I'm really impressed with Dennis Hauger this season, I've got to be honest. He's comfortably had the measure of Logan Sargent. Sargent managing just 1 podium this season, while Hauger has had 3 wins. It's definitely a dominant performance, and I think that's going to move him up in the championship potentially as well. We surely will be out of sight now in P1, but Dennis Hauger could still get P2.
So let's have a quick look at how the drivers' standings have changed. Robinson increases their championship lead. Let's focus on driver of the day, Natalie Pinkham. Come on, who do you pick?
Dennis Hauger gets my vote today.
Let's move on to the constructors. The owner-drivers team moved to the top of the table. Well, that certainly was an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.
So Oscar Piastri is 112 points down on us now, but you know, he's not that far ahead of Dennis Hauger. So could Hauger in these last 5 races potentially overturn the Australian driver and grab P2 in this Drivers' Championship? That would be a hell of a story. 177 points the gap in the constructors now as well. So I think we're looking pretty good in that department as well. But my goodness, Dennis Hauger, what an amazing story for the Norwegian driver. You know, he in our first season with him, in season 2, when we signed him to the team, he was absolutely nowhere. The car admittedly wasn't great. We did manage to pick up a few podiums in it over the course of that season, but Dennis Hauger struggled to even get points on the board. It was a similar story for him in season 3, and eventually I had to let him go, try and get in a more experienced teammate to help us develop the car to race-winning, championship contending ways. And you know, he was completely outclassed by his teammate Max Verstappen in that season. He no matter what happened, it just seemed like Verstappen completely had the measure of him in that Aston Martin. And then season 5, things started to change around a little bit. Hauger was, you know, not consistently but frequently outperforming Max Verstappen, and you know, he was getting on the podium. He had a few races that looked like he might win them. They didn't really materialise for one reason or another. Maybe he had a mechanical failure. Maybe he had a problem. Maybe somebody else just ended up, you know, looking after their tyres a little bit better than Dennis Hauger or something like that. And now season 6, he has come out. He's won his first race in Formula 1 after 5 seasons in the sport. And he said, you know what, I'm not done there. He won it in France, he won it again in Zandvoort, and now for the 3rd time this season here in Texas, he has won it. And I just can't explain how happy I am to see it happening, because this driver is a driver I signed to the team, not necessarily even because I thought he was going to be particularly good or anything like that. Like, I've always rated Dennis Hauger in real life, but admittedly his F2 campaign has not gone quite the way that I was hoping it would as a fan of him. You know, I was hoping that he would be a dominant force, maybe not in season 1, but certainly in season 2, that he would, you know, sort of really start challenging for the title. And it didn't work out for whatever reason for Dennis Hauger. In his 3rd season in Formula 2 now, in real life, he's doing particularly well. But I still didn't think it would be enough for him to be a competitive force here in this actual, you know, My Team career mode. But somehow Dennis Hauger, he's managed to make it work in that Aston Martin. And there is a big part of me that wants to drop my current teammate, Charles Leclerc, who, you know, he's not even having a bad season, really. He's just picking up consistent points here and there. I was expecting that he would have a few more wins this season than he actually had. And, I mean, there's still time for him to turn it around, I guess. But it's not been overly working out for Charles Leclerc. There's a big part of me that wants to re-sign Dennis Hauger in a sort of last dance scenario in our final season next season. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of everything that's going on with Dennis Hauger. Should we re-sign him to the team? Should we have a last dance? Because there's a part of me that just worries a little bit that it will be absolutely catastrophic and that he will just not score anywhere near as many points as he's scoring in the Aston Martin. But I suppose we'll see if we try it. Next up is going to be the Mexico City Grand Prix, but that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.